Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I would like to break down the information gleaned at a recent bar citizen in China. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So last month, many members of Cloud Imperium attended a bar citizen in China in which they took part in a Q&A and an interview. So today I would like to run through what was said, as many would miss this information otherwise. Now, a lot of this information has been answered in the past, many of the questions have been asked before, but there are always new backers coming in, others may have missed it, plus it is always nice to be reminded of what is to come. Also, a big thank you to Greasy Khaleesi for posting the interview on their YouTube channel, of which I have linked in the description below. So with that said, let us kick off with the most important question first, which was in regards to fishing in-game, and will we be able to? Now, as mentioned in the past, Cloud Imperium do want a fishing mechanic in Star Citizen, but of course, get it? Of course? It's not a priority at this time, and won't come in the short term, nor is it planned to release for Star Citizen 1.0. Chris does go on to say that you will be able to farm, to fish, to live off the grid, he says, in some corners of the galaxy, and potentially never meet another person, if that is what you want to do. And talking of off the grid, if you haven't checked out my off-grid series of gameplay videos, I highly suggest checking them out, as it might give you some idea of what you might want to do in the verse. Now, fishing has come up in the past a few times. Being able to hunt, gather flora, farm and fish is all planned for Star Citizen. Not just for the sake of survival mechanics, which are needed for the game, but also just in general. All of these will likely take some time to come out, and as Chris said, it is not going to be for a Star Citizen 1.0, it will be post-official release. Now next, Chris was asked about how multiple ships will collaborate together or work together as a fleet. Now, he says that when it comes to multi-crew, this will really kick off big time when the engineering systems come online, so working together on board one ship to manage all the systems and fly it efficiently, as we all know. They will also introduce at some point a team-based communication system so players can communicate between ships in a fleet. For example, feeding information about a potential target from one ship to another. These are all features, he says, set to come into Star Citizen 1.0. So this will make things like reconnaissance or scanning ships and vehicles very important. For example, a ground vehicle with a much smaller signature could get close to a target on the ground and then relay that relevant information to a larger fleet who are preparing to attack. Or just sharing important information about the opposition's fleet maneuvers between your own fleet will certainly be a lot of fun for orgs. But for me in general, outside of combat-orientated fleet maneuvers, what I like to think about, for example, is you could find a resource-heavy area on a planet, and then it will take multiple people and multiple ships to set up some form of pop-up settlement there while you gather those resources. You would need security, you would need your, say for example, mining equipment and ships, and maybe there's a storage facility you need to build, housing for the workers so that they can log in and out of that location quicker, a garage to maintain your vehicles, maybe a medical station as well in case there are any injuries. So working together as a fleet, not just on combat maneuvers, but for industry, is going to be a lot of fun as well. Now next up, they ask about whether long-distance engagements between ships are planned. Now for Star Citizen's combat, they want combat to be close and within visual range, and with master modes, there is still a lot of tweaks required to improve it, one of which being boost and quantum boost, plus there is going to be a lot of balancing as well. Now I know this comes up quite a bit over time, and as much as I think there is definitely fun to be had with a long-range engagement, which is a shame they're not planning to bring any form of engagement out at long distances at this time, I do get the point of wanting to keep it within visual range, as it can be a lot less exciting just targeting a dot on a radar. But I do suppose they have spoken about wanting a laser designation style gameplay, where a vehicle with their eyes on the enemy can laser target for another ship out of visual range to launch a missile barrage or a mortar attack. So there is still some potential there, but someone in the group needs to be within a visual range. And I suppose this harks back somewhat to the previous question about working as a fleet, being able to communicate between each other. It is all sort of part and parcel of the same experience. Next question, are there plans to update older ships? Now they say yes, they want every ship to be gold standardized for Star Citizen 1.0 and are currently deciding what ships to get done first, as there are many factors involved in prioritizing this stuff, like the amount of work that might be required. Do the ships still fit the role? Do they need to be readjusted? For example, though, he said the Constellation and the Cutlass will definitely get an update pass, and so will the Aurora and Mustangs, as they are starter ships that are quite old. So it kind of sounds like the Connie, the Cutlass, the Aurora, the Mustangs, they are somewhat prioritized to be the first to get this pass, which is important because starter ships and the most used ships should really be the priority. But it is safe to say that every ship will eventually get updated to the final standard at some point. For 1.0, they are aiming to get every ship to whatever the current gold standard will be at that time, but also they are prioritizing what comes first. Next question, is there any status updates on the Polaris, and can the pilot actually shoot the torpedoes? So they say next week the grey box gate review for the Polaris is planned. The exterior is further along than its interior, but it is still on track for release at Invictus Launch Week this year. Now the pilot will not have control of the torpedoes. There is a separate station dedicated to firing torpedoes. Now I think firstly it's important to note that these large ships are not intended to be soloed. You need to have crew, be that player or NPC crew. And when it comes to having an actual engagement, the pilot is going to want to work with the other members of the crew to ensure that they are able to do their job to the best of their abilities. They will be heavily concentrated on just piloting the ship, rather than also trying to target potential enemies with their torpedoes. So having a dedicated torpedo operator station is going to be important. Next question is, are there any updates on the Banu Merchantman or the Nautilus, which is the mine-laying ship from Aegis? Now, the Banu Merchantman was spoken about at CitizenCon last year, and nothing has changed since that update. It is not in active development, and neither is the Nautilus. Once it does go into production, they say it will be presented on the roadmap or the progress tracker, and you will know about it. Next question, will ship-to-station docking get fixed? Now, this is actively getting looked at this time. They want this fixed as soon as possible. It is just a bug, but it is one of the highest prioritized vehicle bugs. So they are looking at it now. They want to get it docking working for 3.2.4, as there is some big cargo updates coming. So it would make sense to get things like the Hull C capable of doing this. Next question, are we going to see a full ecosystem with fauna and that whole circle of life? And they say, yes, this is all part of the big plan, and we will start to see more and more fauna come into the persistent universe, started with 3.2.3, of course, but more with 4.0 and beyond, with a full ecosystem from predators to prey. Now, on the progress tracker, for a while there has been a deliverable called Ecosystem Enhancements, which says enhancing the realism of plants and animals in their aspects and behaviors to better immerse them in their respective environments. And when they create these creatures, they don't just make them look cool and throw them in. They will have planned out a full hierarchy and a food chain, plus each creature's behaviors, their traits, their day-night cycles will likely have been planned out as well, even though they're not potentially in-game yet. But they have big plans for fauna to make sense to the environment that they are in. Also, the same goes for flora, as seasons are planned, and plants will go through various states depending on the care that they are receiving or the environment that they are in, and of course the weather. So there are big plans to create very realistic ecosystems from fauna to flora, and of course we will see that evolve for the foreseeable. Next question, right now ship and FPS weapons are found in different locations. Why is this, and what are the plans for a robust economy system? Now they say the intention of spreading items out throughout the verse is to encourage players to travel to interesting places, but long term there will be certain gunsmiths or weaponsmiths, for example, who are very adept at creating an effective weapon or a sought after weapon, which can only be acquired from visiting that location and that gunsmith. And to give this sense of accomplishment and adventure by traveling to this location, rather than just being able to quickly buy it via some form of UI. Now, legendary weapons, they say, will require a lot of work and reputation grind in order to even be offered the option of buying it. But Chris also mentions that if you go to the effort to travel and buy these weapons from that particular gunsmith and then travel to somewhere else where they're not available, you could then set up shop and sell them potentially at a premium. Now, this is something that, as mentioned, not only applies to NPC vendors throughout the verse, but for players as well. When crafting comes along, or any profession really, but talking specifically about crafting weaponry, if you are good at crafting weapons and you use the best materials and you're better at crafting than others, as it will be a skill-based system, just like any other mechanic, then you will be able to make a name for yourself and charge a premium. And that will go for every profession. If you are one of the best at anything in the game, then your services will be worth a lot more and you can make a name for yourself. Next question, will multiple players be able to log out in a single ship? And they say bed logging is changing. And for 1.0, they want it to be much more robust. So yes, multiple people will be able to log out in a single ship. They are also refactoring the bed logging system in itself, which is on schedule, but is either this year or next year, they couldn't remember. But right now, ships with beds are the only way to properly log out, if it works. But when this refactor comes along, logging out without a bed will be possible, but doing so in a bed will have more benefits for your character's passive stats. Now, we don't know exactly what these changes will bring. We've heard this mentioned in the past. I think the idea being that you can practically log out anywhere you want, even without a bed, but that bed will provide you with subtle buffs, which in the long term will be very handy, as it's not always practical to find a bed, especially as I am now a father. I do appreciate being able to just log out and log back in again as and when it suits me. But obviously there will be certain aspects to this, like additional risk, I suppose, which is a whole other conversation. But hopefully we get a bit of an update on what their actual plans are for bed logging soon, because there's a lot of speculation going around and it's good to clear that up. Anyway, for the next question and the last question, for big ships there is often a lot of unused internal space. Will there be any improvement in the future to reduce this wasted space? Now they say with the resource network coming, having spaces that may seem redundant at this time will actually become access points for relays or components, so this space will serve a purpose. There you go, that was the latest information from the bar citizen, or the interview from the China bar citizen. Some very nice little tidbits there, but as mentioned, most of it is stuff we already knew or have been answered before, but still it is nice to be reminded of what is coming. But with that said, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. It is much appreciated. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome. It is a great place if you are new or returning to the game to ask your questions. It doesn't matter what that question is, you can ask away. I will try and answer as many as I can. Or if you just want to watch me play some off-grid Star Citizen, you are more than welcome to either way. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. A big thank you to my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys, so thank you for the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.